This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell-Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning. Happy Saturday. All About Home Construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. Really appreciate you guys. Been hearing from quite a few people this week, and we really appreciate that. So we are live here in the studio. Randy Blake taking care of some business. It's great, you know. That's the way Randy rolls. But good morning, Randy. How are you, man?
Morning, Terry. How are you?
We're here. It's a Saturday morning. We appreciate it, and it's a good Saturday morning, right?
Yep, and everybody out there.
That's it. So, well, it's gotta love it. Middle of April.
Guess what? I seen it down around Rockingham.
Uh-oh.
Barn swallows. So spring is on its way.
But they hadn't made it to the mountains yet.
And somebody asked me the other day, what do you consider spring? I said, well, generally as a rule of thumb, in my history, trying to pay attention, when the barn swallows got here, within 2 weeks is full-blown spring.
There you go. Well, but there is a frost advisory out.
Yes,
so
this week.
We're at that time of year.
I guess I better go to the barn and see if they're there.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you got to put the plants up for frost anyway. It can be spring or not spring. Still a lot of work.
Oh yeah, but you know, during this time for the last couple of months, I've been raising radishes.
Well, that's funny because we put some in. I guess it was Easter weekend. Carson wanted to go get some plants, and we got some radish seeds, and we got some kale and lettuce and stuff like that. And the radishes are shooting on up. They're getting pretty big. And we got them. I'm doing the container stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was doing.
I
got to get my aquaponics back up and running.
Well, I'm just glad I saw the frost advisory because I'm going to have to go tonight and remember to bring them all in, which is not the best part of gardening in a container, by the way.
No.
You move things around. It's kind of hard sometimes, but it's all right. I have decided that this year container gardening is the way to go because I'm tired of deer getting into the actual garden. And maybe with container gardening, I can keep some deer out.
Well, you should be able to. But what happens at night? You're gonna like I have an electric eye on my side of the house there, and they don't pay any attention to that.
No. Carson actually was speaking of Carson. We had this conversation the other day. You know how you can buy those little spike strips to keep the moles and voles out of the yard?
Yeah.
You know, they make the little noise and vibration and keeps them away. If we could figure out something that would do that for deer and actually work, there's $1 million idea right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that. If you could make, like they do on sci-fi shows.
Well, if you could do if you could do that, you can make a lot of money. Because if you watch the news, Tiga K down there, and Oak Island a few years now.
Yep.
Tiga K is getting ready to go through the same thing that Oak Island did. You know, at the coast where.
And that's where everybody digs it up for gold?
No, that's North Carolina Island.
Oh, sorry.
The deer population got so bad that, it's basically a summertime area. Not many residents live there. So they hired professional hunters to come in, and they had to clean the deer out.
Right.
And, it bothers a lot of people that they have to do that, but it doesn't bother them that diseases can spread even more and wipe out the whole population.
Right. I mean that's the thing that people don't realize. A lot of people don't realize is that when you have a large population, I mean that's just biology, right? When you have a large population of something in the area, then something else down the food chain is going to suffer from that, right?
Yeah. Or your wife's who doesn't like deer meat, but still screaming at you,
right?
Going, you got to do something about my plants.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing. They did down at Oak Island down there. They hired professional hunters. Now they're dealing with it at Tiga K. I seen that the other day on WBTV News.
Well, there you go.
So
Deer population. I like a good deer burger, though.
Oh, I do too. Think about all the deer in the town of Boone here.
Well, right. That's been a huge controversy about, do they open it up and let people bow hunt or not? Things like that.
Well, you can bow hunt in Charlotte, Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
And it is a little scary, especially if you got hunters that don't know how to bow hunt proper.
Right.
And I've seen some pictures this last year. The professional bow hunter that always wants to. I've killed a lot of deer, but I know I can do a headshot. And the only problem is they miss.
Right.
So the deer suffer.
Yeah. So
probably the .22 rifle would probably be the easiest because you're looking at about a 12, 15-foot shot. Which, even though the bullet can fly a mile and a half.
Well, I don't see that opening up, sadly, but I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see. My thing is we just got to figure out something, right? Like, we got to take care of the population and the health of the population, and it's a whole nother show, I guess.
Yes, it is.
So, anyway, enough about deer. What's going on, man? What's going on with the VFW?
Oh, my fish fries today.
Fish fry?
Yep. It is the first come, first serve. I'm coming back for my first dinner, since...
That's it.
I guess October.
Randy took the winter off. It's springtime, he's back.
Had to have my knee surgery done, and that sort of kind of knocked me down. And next month I'll be doing a steak dinner.
Sweet.
Then I'm going to take the next 2 months off, and then I'll be back in August.
Nice.
In August, we have a bluegrass band out of Columbia, South Carolina, going to come play.
Oh, that's cool. That'll be fun.
And so I believe it's one of my clients that
Nice.
I've worked on their house all these years. And, well, yeah, Randy, we got a band.
That's awesome.
And so come out and see us. You have to come in through the main entrance because of the construction on the side entrance is not finished yet. And for you non-smokers, we'll have the windows open because it is a smoking area.
Right.
And so don't let it deter you. Hold your breath as you go through the bar.
Yeah, it's just a little short distance here.
And but come join us. And Dave will be doing karaoke tonight.
Woohoo!
And I don't sing.
I was going to ask you, are you going to be singing? What are you going to sing?
I'm not, because you know how cats fight.
What song is on the queue for you? Was going to be my question. So.
Spatula.
Well, that'll be fun though. I like a good karaoke, and then good fish fry. Can't go wrong with a good fish fry.
I'll be serving flounder.
Sweet.
And but like I say, first come, first serve, and we have tried to, because of inventory and storage and stuff like that, we try to sell out of everything.
That's awesome.
And it's hard to refreeze fish.
Yeah.
And I just can't eat that many fish.
Well, I mean, you could eat a lot more than me, because guess how many I'm going to eat?
Nada?
I don't like fish. You know that.
Well, I'm sorry. You just weren't raised right.
Maybe. That's very possible. I just the best fish to me is the fish on somebody else's plate.
Well, that's all right. I wished I had something else for you.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But no, that's cool. So what time does that start again? 4?
4 o'clock.
There you
go. We'll be Colin's making the slaw and the hush puppies and tartar sauce. So, and
well, see, I can eat hush puppies and coleslaw. I love coleslaw.
I do too.
But if I have to make coleslaw, mine's more on the vinegar side than the sweeter side.
Different strokes for different folks.
I'm just picky, man.
Vinegar's in all of it, so.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. But I'd rather have it a little more vinegary than I would the opposite of, being like super sweet. So.
Oh, me too.
Anyway, all right. We'll take a break, and then that way we can get into all about home construction here in just a moment. Thanks for listening. Obviously, by listening to this podcast, you see the value of All About Home Construction. Well, by joining our listener supporter community, you're not just tuning in, you're standing with us as we are able to support and fuel our passions of the construction industry. As a listener supporter, you'll enjoy exclusive perks, including hearing your name, or maybe even your business name, on our show. So please go to our Spotify website. The link will be in the show notes, and join. You can join for as little as $1 one-time fee, $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever you think you can afford. Every single penny helps to keep this show going as we can continue to grow and do lots more things. Thanks a lot. And again, more importantly, thank you for listening to this. That's right. All About Home Construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there, both on the radio and the podcast. And we appreciate everybody. And we appreciate everybody sharing the news of the show.
Oh, yes, we
fun
do.
Stuff.
And just blows our mind that we're even rated.
That's it. That's it. So, and that's all because of our listeners. So thank you very much. You can pat yourself on the back. We actually appreciate it a lot. So we do the show for you, right? I mean, this is what it's all about. So, all right. Well, here's a question for you. So as we get into the show here, you know, when I walk down the aisles, you know, the big box stores and stuff, always on the ends of the aisles are where people just, you know, pick stuff up and put it back. It seems like there's always this big jumbled mess of some kind of metal hangers, straps, pieces, and they're always jumbled up because people don't know how to put things back where they find them. My question is, at what, you know, like, when you start talking about joist hangers and stuff like that, like, there's so many different things out there that when you don't know what you're doing, like me, then it's kind of like, well, what does each thing do? So, a couple joist hanger questions for you today.
Well, you know, a lot of people, let's take, for instance, a guy called me the other day, and he said, what is the cost of a deck per square foot?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I'm going, well, what size deck? How high off the ground?
Right.
See, all these are factors that go into it.
Sure.
What are you going to do with this deck? Mm-hmm. And, well, and here in North Carolina, we have two different ways of doing our joist framing.
Right.
And let's use a 2x8 as the example, as a floor joist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to know the width so we can do the span.
Right.
So if you want to use a ledger board, you have to use a 2x10 band, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then that way you put the ledger board underneath the floor joist to hold it.
Right.
Okay? Now, to me, that's old technology.
Sure.
Okay?
Well, I mean, that's how we've been doing that for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially what we're...
You know, and we talked about last week about balloon framing
right.
and platform framing. Balloon framing was around before platform framing
sure.
was. Okay, so now we've grown up a little and we have joist hangers. Simpson came out with them. They do all the engineering for you. And, yes, it is an added cost that you have to put on your floor joists, but your floor joists will be held a lot better and it can't spray it on you, okay? Right. And one thing that people don't realize on floor joists are that you have floor joists that are on the flat.
Right.
All right, and you nail in the flat.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a floor joist that has an angle nail in it, you go to a 16-penny nail. You don't use an 1.5-inch nail.
Why is that?
Because it goes all the way
deep.
It goes all the way through the floor joist into the band.
Okay.
And but it just there's all types of variations of floor joists.
Sure. Well, you know, I mean, there's still this argument of like ledger boards versus joist hangers for a lot of people, right? I mean, like we still see both, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But one thing that I've never quite understood with the ledger boards are, and maybe it's just this is where people cut the corners. You know, we see these like ripped down 2x4s, you know, and it's like it's barely on the edge of it, you know, or they put like 2 nails hold that ledger board in. You know?
Well, it calls for 3 nails actually under every floor joist. And,
but see, that's the key, right? It's got to be under it's got to be placed in the right location, not just tacked up.
Nailed up, yeah. And then that way you're allowed to use toenails to put your floor joists on. But there again, in my eyes, there might be an engineer tell me out there I'm wrong, but let's take a deck. A deck is attached to the side of your house, and a deck is supposed to be attached in new construction with 5/8 bolts.
Right.
All right? You can use a product called ledger lock or torque lock screws, and you put them every 16 inches staggered. Which saves a lot of time.
But those are kind of like replacements for lag bolt and stuff, though, right?
Yeah.
They're not. I guess what I'm trying to say is they're not just normal screws. They're specifically designed for that.
And yes, because of their holding power and their shear strength. Lags were actually outlawed around 2005 and 6 for construction.
Right.
And a lot of people going, we use a lag bolt. And as I was told by an engineer one time, he said, yes, lag bolts can actually work out from expansion and contraction of the treated lumber.
Makes sense.
Because if you over torque it, you always got to, you want to draw that lag bolt up tight as you can because it's treated lumber.
Yeah.
It's wet. But then you get to tearing the fibers. And when you get to tearing the fibers too bad, now you lessen the holding power of it down the road. And now, you generally don't ever see it where it went against the band of the house. Where you seen it was where your diagonals were on your deck for your wind loads.
Makes sense.
Where the most shift.
Yeah, because it's the most pulling and moving. So.
And, we instead of using lag bolts, we use through bolts.
Right.
So we take a inch and a half bit and recess on both sides so we had a flat pull.
That way it's right.
But then again, I've seen that done before where you got the diagonals and they've come down to the bottom of the diagonal to do the through bolt instead of bringing it nearly up to the heel of it and put the through bolt. So you really didn't gain any holding power by coming down.
Yeah.
Well, with the ledger locks and the torque screws, you're putting them in at a 45-degree angle that is perpendicular to the diagonal, so it's got a better holding power.
Right.
And
but you've hit on a couple things that, which is what I have a problem with ledger boards. Right? Is again, like, nails aren't the shear strength on an average nail, right? That's what you're relying on to hold up your, in this case, the deck, right?
Yeah.
Is you're relying on that strength. Well, nails are supposed to hold things together. They're not meant to hold things up, if so to speak, Yeah. And that's where I've always, I've seen it and I know people do it, but I've always it just logically doesn't make sense to me how it long term it'll last, because wood's going to move, and we've all seen where you could build a toy box even, right, and the nails work out over time. Nails just, if you're with a typical nail, at some point it's going to work itself loose. It's going to come out, and you're going to have some play in it.
Yeah.
That's why you always got to get the hammer and go back in, drive the nails in the top deck and back in, right? And that's where I've always worried about the ledger boards is over time when that wood expands and contracts. You get a winter day and it freezes, it's going to expand, and then it's going to thaw out, it's going to contract. That nail is working itself loose, and so over time you're having even less power or strength from that nail. And you're talking a fact right there, okay, because of the movement, all right? But with a 16-penny nail, let's say for the decking, the hand-dipped galvanized, they got zinc. Most of those nails are dipped twice. Okay.
So they have like little nodules on them. They're rough, which really helps. But let's say you put the ledger strip on with 16-penny nails instead of 8-penny, what the code calls for.
Right.
All right, which an 8-penny is a little smaller nail, but the 8-penny does not split the fibers of the inch and a half ledger like a 16 would.
Right.
So if you're going to use a 16 on the ledger, then it'd be great if you could drive it in, but probably better if you drilled a pilot hole for it to go through so it's not splitting the ledger. And then
no one's going to do that, right?
Correct, because it's all it's all money.
Yeah.
It's somebody's money, the homeowner or the contractors.
Right. Well, but then you got with air guns. I mean, and I love a good air nail gun, but at that point, I guess I've seen too many where, again, the pressure's not set right. The nails either go too far in or not enough in, and therefore, like, again, you're hurting the integrity of the wood, or you're relying on the sheer strength of a little bitty piece of metal. And that's just where I worry about, I guess, when you, especially when you get larger and more ledger board, when it comes to ledger boards.
The difference is, let's say a 2-bait, you'd put 4 16-penny nails in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The approximate pound load laterally is 138 pounds per nail. Times 4, that's quite a bit, okay?
That, I guess that is higher than I expected, but still.
But then you got your joist hanger on a 2-bait would probably be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 nails in it.
Right.
So, but the nails against the band would be 1.5 inches, and then if there's 3 on each side that are 1.5 inches, then that's a lot of holding power.
Right.
That's a lot of withdrawal plus a lot of shear strength.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, again, ledger boards to me is, and I think a lot of it is because I've seen people try to take corners, right? Like it's out of sight, out of mind. It's easy to, let's just go pop, pop, pop. Put a couple nails in it.
Well, a lot of people with air guns are shooting 12s. They're not shooting 16s.
Right.
And
yeah.
That's the reason I like the Max guns, because the Max was shooting a full 3.5 inch galvanized nail.
Well, yeah, I mean it's clear. I'm not a fan, if you will, of the ledger boards, and I don't mean that like people who use them are doing it wrong.
No, that's the reason code addressed it. But me myself, prefer to use a bigger nail. I only use nail guns for sheeting.
Right.
Right. And we'll use nail guns for headers and tees and things like that.
Right.
But most of the time I still frame with regular 16-penny nails.
Right.
I'm a dinosaur.
Sure.
How about that?
Yeah.
And
but again, just for sake of use, you don't see people using things like screws to hold in ledger boards. I mean, it's just everyone just goes to the nail, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. Anyway, I tell you what, let's take a break, and I'm going to ask you some questions about the actual joist hangers. Thanks for listening to us. We'll be right back. Obviously, by listening to this podcast, you see the value of All About Home Construction. Well, by joining our listener supporter community, you're not just tuning in, you're standing with us as we are able to support and fuel our passions of the construction industry. As a listener supporter, you'll enjoy exclusive perks, including hearing your name, or maybe even your business name, on our show. So please go to our Spotify website. The link will be in the show notes, and join. You can join for as little as $1 one-time fee, $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever you think you can afford. Every single penny helps to keep this show going as we can continue to grow and do lots more things. Thanks a lot. And again, more importantly, thank you for listening to this. That's right. All About Home Construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. And whether you listen on the radio and the podcast. And hey, don't forget, you can give us a shout out on the Facebook page, All About Home Construction. We also have All About Home Construction at Gmail. If people want us to get in contact with us that way. And then, of course, if you're listening to the radio station, you can give us a call, 828-262-1567. How else can they get in touch with us? We have, if you're listening to the podcast, you can put a comment on the bottom. So I think we try to make ourselves available, Randy.
Well, I hope so.
Well, we talk to people all the time, and it's fun. I love it. And so anyway, before we get back into it, don't forget the VFW, the Fish Friday night, 4 o'clock. Randy will be cooking some nice flounder.
And guess what? There'll be a plate left over because Terry don't eat it.
Yeah, well, you never know. It's always a first. What's the I don't want to. I'm not going to ask you for your 7 spices and secret spices and stuff. But is your what's your breading? Like, is it a peppery type breading? Is it just a kind of a bland or?
It's curious. Something I come up with over the years that it's a dry breading, so it is the lightest fish batter.
That's okay.
Out there.
Okay.
And we used to use a wet breading, back in the restaurants years ago.
Right.
I used to do seafood down there in Riverdale. But it's almost like the freezing process of that fish wasn't as drastic as it is today.
Well, I was curious because
we used to put 2 eggs to a quart of milk. Now if I do that today with this type of fish that we have, and then the batter will blow while
it just kind of falls off, right?
Yeah.
So all right. So that's what I was wondering. Just curious.
I just come up with this recipe over the years of experimentation and stuff like that, and it doesn't absorb a lot of oil like a lot of fish does.
Nice.
And because I like fried foods, but you got to have fried foods. Got to be healthy. Okay. How about that?
You don't want fried like mush.
Correct.
And that. All right. All right. Well, enough about fried fish
and peanut oil.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Should be using lard and tallow, but
Well, that the lard and tallow's for fish and chips.
Yeah, I like a good fish and chips. Now, I've told you before.
Now that is a wet batter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the best fish that I have ever had in my life, and I value this experience, was in Ireland. We're on the coast of Ireland, 2001, and there's this little I don't even want to call it a restaurant. There was a little hole cut in the wall on the coast, and the guy was selling fish and chips. And here I was in Ireland, so clearly I had to eat fish and chips, and the fish was good.
And that's actually where I got my fish and chips recipe, was from Ireland.
There you go. But you didn't get it from some guy on the beach.
Nope, because I hadn't been to Ireland.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So there we go. Well, if you can fix fried flounder like the guy who lives in Ireland on the coast, then I will eat your fried fish.
Well, I ain't going to do it today.
All right. Well, it'll be good just the same. All right. Well, anyway, all right. Getting back into just some Joist Hanger questions, or Hanger questions in general. So I've seen a couple things with when it comes to Joist Hangers. So now clearly I am a fan of Joist Hangers over ledger boards, but I've also seen where people don't take the time for Joist Hangers. To me, at least with a ledger board, that you measure a couple points and you put it on, right? And it's all of the joists are going to be the same level, same height, right?
Yep.
When it comes to Joist Hangers, how many do you see where people aren't paying attention and they're either too high or too low, right? Like your joists aren't lined up correctly.
The reason for that is because they put their joist hanger on before they put their floor joists on.
Yeah.
And we've talked about lumber being in standardized dimensions. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it all comes out of the sawmill, cut the same. It's all milled the same, but it is each one a different tree.
Sure.
And there's a difference between heartwood,
yeah.
sapwood. So I've seen as much as a quarter-inch difference in
the
height of a floor
right?
joist.
Same.
So let's say if you put your floor joists on first, or put your hangers on first, then you drop your floor joists in, and you got a floor joist that's too tall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you got to take it out and you got to notch it so it drops.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Or you put the floor joist in that is not tall enough, and so, all right, then you got to go cut a shim to go under. But you lose all the ability of your joist hanger.
But people don't even do that. How many times do they just beat on it until it fits?
Well, that's it. But it only fits. They beat on it only at the band. Okay, so it is higher everywhere else.
Yeah, that's my thing, and so that's the one thing. And I've seen that, and I've also seen where people have they measure and they'll put up they'll hang half of it, right? They'll nail one side and lift the other side up. Hang, and then that way when they go back to put it on, but they use that to get the height. Well, now the board is not actually sitting square in on that joist hanger because they've cheated it up or down.
Yes,
and it's like,
so there you get a squeak. Okay.
Yeah.
And I used to be a big fan of Southern Yellow Pine floor joists in my building because of the strength of it and stuff. But then it got so inconsistency in the height. Yeah. So you were when you put your floor system on, you're either going to have to rip it down before you put it in.
Right.
And which we've done that. We actually took the hand planer and feathered them
right,
out.
Yeah.
Because the deflection would bring it on down. But the point of it is that's extra time spent on it. And so sometimes yellow pine is so outrageous expensive that it's cheaper to go with a bigger member of spruce.
Right.
And accomplish the same thing.
Right.
And either way you go, I used a hanger. You don't have to use a hanger when your joists are sitting on 1.5 inch ledger. Okay. Right. But when you do it, makes on your band and stuff like that, where it sits on your mud seal, that's considered your ledger. Okay.
Right.
So, a good rule of thumb is to nail your floor joists in the band, whatever if it's a 2x6 3, 2x8 4, 2x10 5, 2x12 6. Okay. Then you got good holding power.
Right.
And then you can toenail one.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right, is you really, to do it right, to have the best construction, you really need to take that extra step of toenailing things in, because that way you can line things up and then, put your hanger on. But we've all seen it where, again, it's like you try to find the third hand somehow, and you're holding it, and then you're trying to nail it all in and hope it all lines up at once, And I think that's the... that to me is sort of again, it goes back to cutting corners and it's just, and I'm all about working smarter, not harder, but sometimes I think it comes back to bite us in the end of the especially when you start to really get into the finer construction, if you will, right? Like the better built stuff. And the other thing that I see a lot too is, the nails, when you look at it at the flange of the joist hangers, the nails kind of go in at that, I guess it's a 45-degree angle, right?
Yeah.
On the side. But how many times do people not pay attention when they're nailing and the nail bends, or they don't hit the hammer, they don't hit the nail correctly, and you get a bend in it, and then now it's blowing out the end of the board rather than nailing through the end of the board.
Correct. And that's, that can be due to the placement of the nail.
Right.
If the perfect nail drove is at a 45-degree angle. Okay. And at 45-degree angle, you have the center penetration of the floor joist that goes into the band. All right. If you drive it at a steeper angle, or like a 60-degree angle,
right,
you're up higher on the wood. Okay. So your penetration is coming in at a straighter angle.
Right.
All right, and your nails, the reason your nails are drove to 45 is because they act as a stitch.
Yeah.
And I just sent you a picture, a detail of a correct joist hanger and an incorrect joist hanger.
Well, and that's the trick of the whole thing, and is that you've got to get that angle right. And you would think the way joist hangers are made with the little hole in them, you would think it would help guide it in, but again, you got to pay attention. You can't just start swinging a hammer, I guess.
Correct. And but there is an art to it, and it's something that everybody has to learn. Just I was working on Beach Mountain up there, building those roundhouses when I was 16-year-old, and we was having to use 10-inch gutter spot, 12-inch gutter spots to go through the 2x6 yellow pine 2x6s.
Right.
And here I'm bending nails, and golly, I'll never forget, one of the older guys said, "Randy, you got to hold your hammer a little tighter."
Yeah.
And I'm going, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you're not holding it hard. You're not holding the handle tight enough because every time you hit it, your head of your hammer's vibrating."
Right.
So it's vibrating, it's wiggling. And he said, "You don't need to set the nail in 4 or 5 licks. It might take you 10 or 12. It might take you 20, but take your time and hit it straight."
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And
You know, most of those old guys I worked with on Beach Mountain, up there, I think there was about 14 of us that worked together. And I worked together with them several summers.
That's cool.
And they're all gone,
There
all
you
but just
go.
a couple. So
Yeah, wow.
But they framed the way that I was taught to frame when I was younger.
Well, right, and then, I mean, here we are talking about technology and the, joist hangers obviously being newer than ledger boards, but at the same time, there's something that's said about that old world craftsman part. The knowledge. I don't want to discredit. I guess what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to discredit the old world fashion, like that craftsmanship that goes into it. That there is an art to even swinging a nail, hammering.
But even with the technology with screws, if they're not installed correctly, and let's say, to give you an example of a roofing screw in OSB, a number 9 or a number 10. All right, if you use a torque wrench, battery-powered torque wrench, then you're going to strip that screw out.
Right.
All right, and the manufacturers have even came as far now that if you're putting it in regular plywood or 3/4 inch tongue and groove or 1.5 tongue and groove, if you use a torque wrench to put that screw in, it voids the warranty on the screw. Okay,
right.
So, and you wouldn't know how many people out there don't know how to use the chuck on a drill to set the sensitivity of it in the clutch.
Yeah, you just put it all to 3 and go to town.
Well, sometimes you can't. Sometimes in OSB you got to set your clutch at 1. But if you set it on drill, you'll strip it out. And if you go out there and look,
but it works faster that way, Randy.
I know. But if you go out there on your roof and you see screws that are coming up, that's a screw that's stripped.
Yeah. Why? I never quite understood. I think you just crank it all down to that third setting and that drill setting. I don't care if you're putting up a sheetrock screw or a deck screw. Or you're drilling a hole. You just keep it all on the. You turn it all the way to the right, and
How many times you walk out on somebody's deck and the screw's not flush with the top of the deck and it's down about 1/8 inch.
Oh, that's not what you want.
No.
Oh. Well.
You don't want to break the fibers. I worry more about a child walking barefooted on the deck getting a splinter in their foot. And then they're worried about child eating treated decking.
Well, I mean, what do you feed your kids?
Lead.
Oh.
No, that's just a joke.
All right, we'll take a break. Come right back after this. Thanks for listening to us. Are you ready to level up your home construction game? Obviously, you've subscribed to All About Home Construction. Now we would like to ask you for some support. You can be like Dave, Bill, and Skipper and help support All About Home Construction. The links are in the show notes. That's right, All About Home Construction here in WATA. Thanks to all of our listeners out there. And talking a little bit about joist hangers. But hey, don't forget, Fish Friday night at the VFW, 4 o'clock. Get on over there, get some nice fish. So,
well, I wish Terry was coming, but he's not.
Well, I may try to make an appearance. I'm not opposed to trying new things.
That's all right.
I'm a big fish guy. But all right. Before we get to the end, I got a couple more questions when it comes to joist hangers, and 2 more questions. The first one is, first of all, improper measuring of the board. Right? How many times do you see where people cut it short, but because they're using a joist hanger, it's just like, close enough, right? Because it's still going to hang there.
Well, there might be a reason they did cut it short. And let's say you know that your floor system in between 2 girders is going to be X amount of measurement. But what happened if you put your girder in and your girder's got a bow in it that would make it short, okay?
Right.
Instead of making your girder straight. I've seen that before.
Okay.
To give you an example, we were putting the floor system in down there in Burke County, and I said, Ash, you got to make sure you tighten those up. And he didn't get them tight.
Right.
All right. Which it wasn't any problem because of the joist hanger and stuff. And but I showed him where it transferred. That bow Now, it wasn't but an 1/8 inch, okay,
Sure.
and it was 2 floor joists. But I used it as a training to show him that, now, let's chalk a line right here, and you'll see right here.
Right, where it gets off.
Where we instead of having a straight line that I want, we have a bow in the wall.
Right.
Now, this floor system, now, to let you know, was an odd floor system, okay? We were well within the code limits on how we designed it.
Right.
With double bands and double girders with regular conventional lumber. But an engineering firm decided that that wasn't strong enough for a log cabin, so we had to mix and match LVLs with conventional lumber, and LVL's an 1 7/8 thick instead of 1.5 inches.
Right.
So we actually had cracks in the lumber on our joints because we had to join them at 2 foot.
Because they were right. Okay.
And and that led to another problem. That led to air leaks coming in our floor system, so we had to foam in between them.
Yep. So when we've talked a little bit about joist hangers. That's not the same as like all hangers are not joist hangers, and joist hangers don't work for all types of hangers, right?
No.
Like, there's different hangers for different reasons.
Yeah, what actually got us into looking at this morning was a Met wood product, and I sent Terry some pictures of plumbers had cut floor joists totally out.
Right.
So when you got a 2x10 and there's only 1.5 inches on the top and 1.5 inches on the bottom, there's no way that floor joist is going to hold any load at all. And they do make splice plates that goes on them, and Met Wood is a company that makes them. And it actually, we got to see it in the early 2000s when it came out. So I've been sitting here texting Terry pictures of some real rough work.
It'll be a fun show to dive into just that, right?
And but we never did get into the mending plates.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to like the joist hangers, though, you've got like stud plate ties, you've got girder ties or joists, whatever you want to call them, right?
Well, it's conventional lumber. Everybody knows what joist hangers are for conventional lumber. Okay, when we went to I-joist, the I-joist people had to come up with another joist hanger because you can't nail all the nails you want to an I-joist like you do a conventional framing. Okay, because most I-joists only have 2 8-penny nails in the bottom of them, hold them on the band.
Right.
But when they go up against an LVL or a girder, now you have to have a hanger that will hang on top, that hangs straight down, so the nails are on the top, they're not in the side.
Because the LVL.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Okay.
And or if it is, it's not a 16-penny nail, it's just an 8-penny nail just to hold it because the hanger's carrying all the load.
Yeah. Okay.
And we actually did a job a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, where they did the I-joists on LVLs, but they didn't nail them.
Right.
They didn't, the hangers and the I-joists were skewed over about 5 degrees.
Okay.
And we had the guy come in, you've burnt my floor. I've got a 3/4 inch sag here. And I said, no, you had to sag the whole time. You're just now noticing it.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And so we went down there and we took a hydraulic jack.
Yeah.
We filled it full of oil so it could be as a horizontal jack instead of a vertical jack. And we moved them all over and took all the bow out of his floor.
That's cool. That's a lot of work, though.
Well, he had to pay for it, but the point of it was the hanger was put on incorrect.
There you go.
So we were actually on that type of hanger that they had, we were able to drill the hanger and attach it with screws into the LVL.
Now, last question I have for you is, if you're going 2x8s typically, but if you're going with something else like a 2x10, say, would you use the same joist hanger or different sizes for different
sizes for different? A 2x4 only has 2, 4, 6, 8 nails in it.
Yeah.
2x6 has 10 nails, and like I said, it depends on the hanger and manufacturer.
So, but I guess my point is you can't just buy one hanger.
Not for all of them.
You gotta. Okay.
It's because if you take a 2x4 joist hanger and put on a 2x12, then you stand a chance of twist.
See, but I've seen that. I mean, I've seen people use that, and that's why I was curious. Okay. Well, good stuff. Lots of Joist Hanger questions. So thank you.
Well, that's not the end of the story. They can be a whole nother show on Joist Hanger.
There you go. Well, thanks for listening to us, Randy. Appreciate you coming in. Lovely Saturday in April, and
spring's on its
way. Spring's on the way. Take your plants, your house plants that you've put outside to get some fresh air. Take them in tonight because it's going to frost. There you go. All right, man. And then fish fry.
Or if you don't like fish, think about karaoke.
Karaoke and fish. It's a great time. All right. Thanks for listening to us. I guess, Randy, I'll see you next week. Take it easy.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the podcast edition of All About Home Construction. We want to thank Skipper, Dave, and Bill for supporting the show. If you're enjoying this episode and you want to help us by creating some more awesome content, there are a few ways you can show your support. Subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. This actually helps us reach new listeners and climb the charts. And please share this episode with your friends and family. Word of mouth is always the best kind of advertising. You can support us directly through our page on Spotify. The links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening to us.